Deputy John McGuinness.
10 minutes each, is it? Yeah. 10 minutes.
10 minutes each.
Okay. First of all, I want to say to Deputy Buttimer, I don't style the committee, Deputy Buttimer. The members of that committee work diligently and work to their own style. They raise their own set of questions and they have, I think, worked very well together as a team with the Comptroller and Auditor General. And just as in this case, I have complete confidence in the Comptroller and Auditor General and in the members to question NAMA, to get the details that are absolutely necessary to try and fill in the gaps of information that now exist in the public domain regarding the sale of Project Eagle. And, you know, I've said it in this House before, and I've spoken directly to Deputy Wallace. It would be helpful if he came forward and gave evidence to the committee so that all of what he has said here can then be investigated at the Public Accounts Committee and indeed can be helpful to the Comptroller and Auditor General as he sets about a special report into NAMA and in particular into Project Eagle. What concerns me about the work of the Public Accounts Committee and what we are trying to achieve in the interest of the public is that there is another jurisdiction. And maybe the investigation being suggested here tonight might lead us to a better understanding and a better cooperation because of the fact that there are two different jurisdictions. It's complicated too by the fact that NAMA, for some reason, have decided not to attend the hearings in Northern Ireland. And I think that that is regrettable. And it has been said directly to NAMA by the members or some members of the PAC that they should attend. They should attend. There are questions to be answered and there's information that they have that might cooperate with that particular inquiry in Northern Ireland. But let's look at the sale of Project Eagle. 68% of that property was in Northern Ireland, 18% in Southern Ireland, 12% in Great Britain and 2% elsewhere. Our interest is what the taxpayer has received at the end of all of this. And some of the information that members have put on the public record here this evening is just simply incorrect. It isn't right. The par value of those loans, that's what the borrowers owed NAMA at one time, was €5.7 billion. NAMA paid the banks €2.2 billion, and the €3.5 billion, 61% of the par value, was the discount in the price paid by NAMA. Then when they went on through the process and they sold, they reported to the Public Accounts Committee that the loss in general was somewhere in the region of 200, 250 million. In fact, the CNAG has said that the loss on the sale, even after all of the haircuts that were received on the way down to the final sale, was €783 million. Now, I have said to NAMA, one of their biggest problems is the arrogance that they display when answering any question. And the fact that it would appear they deliberately delay the answers to some of the questions until such time as it's gone past a particular date, and then it's of no value to anyone because the horse has bolted. That is the problem with NAMA. And in this particular case, the same thing happened. Now, one of the questions that was raised was about the sale of the property. I hold that they should not have gone ahead with the sale of the property, because once they found out that PIMCO gave them information, that there was questions raised, and out of their understanding of the Northern Ireland politics and what was going on, they should have withdrawn from the process. There are issues like the Memorandum of Understanding, where the personal guarantees were to be written off and forgotten about. And that was being suggested from the Northern Ireland Assembly offices. Why was that going on? Why was there such interference that someone would feel confident enough within the political system of Northern Ireland to say to our Minister for Finance that that is what should be happening, freeing all those that had the loans of personal guarantees? We'd all like that. Now, the other thing is that it was said here earlier on that the property market in the north was more or less on the floor, wasn't going anywhere. Well, actually, at a meeting of the Northern Ireland Advisory Committee, which was held on the 7th of October 2013, and which was attended by the chairman and other representatives from NAMA, they were told that, as with Dublin, there is a demand for and shortage of Grade A office space in Belfast City, and the shortage presents a colliery need for landlords and to refurbish existing stock and so on. Positively, rent and yield forecasts across the commercial property sector are predominantly stabilising and strengthening. That's what they were told before the sale of Project Eagle. And that is, alongside then the fixer's fee and how this money ended up in another account, that was notified to them. And there was questions over their representative in Northern Ireland, Frank Cushnahan. So at that stage, when all of these questions were being asked, and when they were dealing with a difficult market, politically and otherwise, they should have withdrawn. And now we have a situation where accusations and allegations are being made in Northern Ireland, but the problem is that we don't have access to that. We have Martin McGuinness asking to attend the PAC because he wants to clarify some issues that were raised by the Minister for Finance in relation to his activities. So there is a need for one single overarching body to actually investigate thoroughly just exactly what happened in relation to this. Because the other issue, and just to give the example, in relation to Project Jewel, you know, the questions that have been raised about that particular property portfolio date back to 2004 and date back to a contract entered into by the council in Dublin at that time. And the questions that were raised around that have not been answered. In fact, some of the councillors will tell you that they know nothing about this contract. Now, if we have any pride in our history, and we talk about it in this House here, and members of this House, and indeed the Taoiseach, have gone to visit that site in Moore Lane and Moore Street. And if they understand the case being made by the representatives that those that fought in 1916 are making, they would ensure that the site in its entirety as a battlefield was protected. And only yesterday down there, when we were visiting that site, the numbers of people that were on guided tours of that location was impressive, in spite of the fact that it hasn't much to offer except very dated plaques and walls. But the history they're receiving and that they're interested in is turning into euros for the Irish economy. And therefore, in terms of its future development, I think that there is an absolute need now for that particular sale to be halted until such time as clarification is received for those that have asked the questions in relation to the submission made at the last PAC meeting, which I gave to NAMA, and Cathaoirleach, that they haven't answered yet. Simple questions. Do they agree with the National Museum and its analysis of that battlefield? Did NAMA have the site assessed itself? What has been the expenditure to date in terms of chartered land planning application on the historic site? And under the terms of the condition, has the ownership of the National Monument 14 to 17 been transferred to the state? I understand that it has. But then there's the 1916 buildings and so on which have been identified and which are part of the development that need now to be saved. And last then there's a question of €5 million set aside by NAMA in terms of that site and how it was to be spent and what is the status of that now. When those simple questions are asked, and when representatives of a project like Project Jewel make the legitimate attempt to engage with NAMA and get nowhere, it is that causes the suspicion. It is that very action, or no action, that causes them to ask the questions that are being asked. And the same is being applied in a much more commercial way to this site, or this property portfolio in Northern Ireland. And it isn't good enough that we would just debate it here and sign it off and say that it's just something that the opposition are doing. It isn't. These are questions that, if we all were to answer honestly, are being asked of us on every side of this House. And there is a concern and a suspicion that has to be dealt with. And there are questions that are in the public domain that deserve to be answered. And I think that if this debate does anything, it should draw attention to those two particular projects of Project Jewel and Project Eagle, and that the Minister should intervene immediately and stop what's going on in relation to Project Jewel, and it should intervene immediately and ensure that the appropriate form is put in place so that all of the questions that are being asked should be answered and dealt with comprehensively.
Thank you, Deputy.